Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome to my channel. It is super early in the morning. I'm trying to be quiet because I'm literally in the room next door to my daughter's room. I will try and make sure the audio is up to par, so bear with me. Thank you very much. If you follow me on Instagram, you would know that I am a huge reader. I know most of my vlogs on YouTube are just lifestyle vlogs, motherhood, just bringing you into my day-to-day life. I'm a stay-at-home mom. My days are literally the exact same every single day, with the odd different day here and there. But one thing that is different for me every single day or every few days is the books that I'm reading. I was a very big reader since I was really young. I fell off of it for a while, and then I got into a book when my daughter was a baby, and then I was just like, I need to read some more. So I decided I'm gonna start making some book videos. I will still share vlogs here and there, but I am going to put out a lot more book videos. I'm going to do an April reading wrap-up plus my May TBR. This month I read the least amount of books, and that's not even because I was in a book slump. This year so far, this month has been my best reading month. Like, I've had the best outcome of my books. I've enjoyed my books the most this month out of every other month. I tell myself there's no competition trying to read as many books as possible. I am a mother. I don't really have the same amount of time. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I take care of my home, all of that. Anyways, I'm so chatty. I need to get into this video. The first book that I read this month or last month was The Unhoneymooners by Christina. So this book is about a girl named Olive, and she has the worst luck basically, and her sister, who's her identical twin sister, is someone who has a lot of luck. She wins a lot of like giveaways and contests. She has this perfect man. She's happy. She's getting married. Ethan happens to be the best man. I'm pretty sure I remember he was the groom's brother, and the two of them don't get along. So this is an enemies to lovers. At Olive's sister's wedding, everyone ends up with food poisoning. Olive and Ethan are the only two people who did not eat the seafood at the wedding. Olive's sister tells her to take the honeymoon. Also, the groom tells Ethan to take the other spot. So the two of them go on this vacation together, and again, they don't like each other. On the trip, they have to pretend to be this married couple on their honeymoon. I did really enjoy this book. Around 65%. It could have honestly just ended. More things were being brought into the story. I did think the banter was amazing. I love the banter. I actually laughed out loud while reading this book. It reminded me of one of my favorite rom-coms, which is Just Go With It. Honestly, because of after the 65%, I would say this book is more like a 3 or 3.5. The next book that I read, I don't have the book. I just have the dust jacket, because my mom's actually borrowing it after I raved about it so much. But it is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I have never read a book like this before. Haven't really gotten into fantasy just yet, so I think that's why this book was so unique to me. I don't know if there's other books like this out there, but I have never read a book like this. This book is about a girl named Addie, and she was born in like late 1600s. She grew up in France, so a lot of this takes place, well, at least like when you're reading about the past, it takes place in France and some other places in Europe. She basically doesn't want to live the typical life everyone's living. She accidentally makes a deal with darkness one day. This guy, this darkness, he basically manipulates her words. She wants time and she wants freedom, and he gives her that, but he gives it to her in a way that she didn't expect. So she ends up being immortal. However, anytime she closes the door, enters a new room, or someone leaves the room, they don't remember who she is anymore. She can't rent a place, obviously, because her landlord would forget who she is. She can't have relationships with people because they will forget who she is. So she lives this very lonely life, and I think that's why a lot of people find this book a little bit slow. But I think it could feel slow because you are living in her shoes. There's times where there's not much dialogue, there's not much relationship building, because she can't build a relationship. One day, 300 years later, she meets someone who does remember who she is. That's as much as I can say. It was just written so well. I really enjoyed it. I did enjoy, like, I never really felt like, oh, this is dragging on, I want it to end. There were sad moments, there were happy moments, there were frustrating moments, angry moments, heartbreak. There was just so many emotions I was feeling when reading this book, and I feel like that's what makes a book good, when you're able to really feel what these characters are feeling. I gave this a 5 stars. Really love this book. I literally had this book from the library and I loved it so much within 40 pages that I went back to the library, returned it, and went and bought the book for myself. So after reading that, I felt like I needed a bit of a lighthearted book. I was like, you know what, let me just get into a rom-com. It's interesting because I'm starting to not care about rom-coms as much. I feel like a lot of them are the same, and I think there are some different ones, but I feel like rom-coms now, or like fluffy romances, I need to spread them out like way apart from each other. I went into reading Mr. Wrong Number, which I got it as a library book, but I've returned it since. Mr. Wrong Number by Lynn Painter. It was okay. This book is about Olivia, and this is a brother's best friend. So Olivia, she basically burns down her apartment building. Now she's living with her brother who lives with his best friend. She gets a text from someone that she doesn't know, and the text just says, "What are you wearing?" And now she ends up building this relationship with someone through text that she doesn't even know, and she calls him Mr. Wrong Number. Hence the title of the book. Colin, her brother's best friend, he is Mr. Wrong Number. So the same guy she's bickering with every day is also the guy that she's texting all the time and building a relationship with, but they don't know that. The Mr. Wrong Number thing didn't last very long. I feel like for the fact that the title is Mr. Wrong Number, I feel like that could have dragged on a little bit longer. I rated this book a 2.5. To be honest, I read it really fast, but because it was a really easy read, but I'm not gonna lie, I wanted it to end. And this book, they talked about sex a lot of the time. Their relationship felt like it was more physical than emotional. I did not feel connected to these characters. I didn't feel like there was much chemistry. I feel like their chemistry was like strictly sexual and not emotional. I also did read this book that I got from the library. I ended up listening to it on an audiobook, and this is Crazy Love by Frances Chan. This is the first Christian book that I've ever read. If I'm reading nonfiction, I have to listen to it on audiobook, or at least if I have a physical copy, listening to the audiobook while I'm reading the physical. This entire book just talks about how overwhelming and amazing God's love is, and how it's literally like nothing else. And he really explains it in such a beautiful way, but then he also explains how you can show that you love God through the things you do on a daily basis. Loving other people, not being like selfish and wanting to help people and do for people, serving other people. By doing all of that, you're also serving and loving God himself. I just really enjoyed this book, and I gave this a 5 star. Now, after all of those books, my life has been changed. My reading game has changed. I don't know how I'm gonna read anything else, but everything changed for me after this. This book I read on Kindle Unlimited. I am gonna get the physical copy, don't be fooled. Magnolia Parks. I think this entire series is my favorite thing that I've read all year. That's saying a lot because it's kind of different from like the other books that I rated 5 stars. The other books that I rated 5 stars this year was Love in Other Words and The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Those are the only 2 fiction books that I rated 5 stars this year. And then came Magnolia Parks. All 3 of those books are very different from each other. First of all, you want to go into this book knowing that you're not reading a fluffy romance. It is a contemporary romance, but a lot of toxic behavior. It is not a book that you want to go into feeling butterflies and rainbows. This is very, very different from anything I've ever read. This book is about a friend group that are within like London's high society. So these are like socialites. They all grew up together. They went to boarding school together. So it's very like found family. This book specifically focuses on Magnolia and BJ. Them two, they have basically loved each other since they were young. They have a very deep connection. They almost have this like love for each other where they cannot live without each other. The whole book is almost like a entire back and forth thing. Will they be together or won't they be together? They're trying to like figure out their dynamic. They're trying to figure out how to get over this thing that happened. They want to be together, but they just keep hurting each other like back and forth. And that's what I mean about this being very toxic. It's not behavior that you want to mimic. I don't feel like anytime in this book they ever made it feel like this is how a relationship should be. This book is definitely an adult book. I would not suggest this for younger people. I feel like even in the book they never once felt like what they were doing was right. Like, I'm pretty sure they even talked about the fact that they knew they were hurting each other. They knew what they were doing was not right. Jessa Hastings has a real way with words. She writes so beautifully. The quotes in this book are so amazing. I loved this book because it was real. Some people actually really do go through so much hardship to get together. I'm not saying it's meant to be that way, but people do grow close to each other through trauma and heartbreak and hardship. And it's funny because in this book, Magnolia's sister says to her a lot, like, you and BJ are connected off of trauma bonds. You guys have a lot of trauma. You guys grew up together. There's a lot that connects you to each other. There are people who have the more fluffy romance, and I think that's beautiful. It felt so real. I feel like these people are real. They're not, but I really feel like they're real. I loved the found family. I loved the friend group. I will say, trigger warning for anyone, this book, it's not really a spoiler because it's pretty much in the beginning of the book. There is cheating in this book. There's also drug abuse in this book as well. There is a YouTuber on here, I believe her name is Raven Haired Reader. She described this book from one of BJ's quotes in the book, and I think it was just so perfect, so I wanted to share. He says, "The problem with me and Parks is I think we love each other more than we love ourselves," which straight up is the book. The next book is Daisy Haites. So this is the second book in the series. It's about a different character. It is about Daisy Haites and Christian. Christian is part of Magnolia's friend group and his relationship with Daisy Haites. Daisy Haites shows up, I believe, for like one or two scenes, I believe, in Magnolia Parks. I read this book on Kindle Unlimited as well, and I'm definitely getting the physical. I need all four of the books. Basically, this series is interconnected. It's all within the same universe. I know that the third book in the series is Magnolia Parks 2, but you definitely want to read it in the order that the books came out because of the timeline. I feel like it makes it easier to follow things. This book is in Christian's point of view, Daisy's point of view, and there's a third point of view, which is Julian, and Julian is Daisy's brother. This book felt a bit slower just because it was a three-person point of view. So you're getting three different people's point of view, you're getting three different people's stories. So it takes a while to get into each person's thing. This book was way more of like a mafia type of vibe because Julian and Christian, they call them gang lords. There is a bit of like that danger, that action in this book, which was enjoyable, which was different. I did really enjoy reading about Daisy and Julian's relationship and understanding their story and why they're such tight-knit siblings, why they have the relationship that they do, because Julian's like super overprotective. So there are a bit of toxic moments in this book. Like, when I say toxic, I mean like unhealthy coping mechanisms, but it wasn't as much as Magnolia Park. Here we are. I did read half of it in April, and then I read the other half for the first 2 days of May. So I decided to put it in my April reading wrap up because pretty much read it in April. I think this book is my favorite in the series. This is the second Magnolia Parks book. It is the third in the series, like the universe, but it's the second Magnolia Parks. This book picks up about a year after the end of Magnolia Parks 1 and brings you into BJ and Magnolia once again. There is still a lot of toxic behavior in this book. Don't think that it's gonna be all rainbows and sunshine yet again. It is not. I was kind of indifferent about BJ. I did like the way that he talked about Magnolia in the first book, but this book now made me love BJ. This book really answered a lot of questions from the first book. I feel like I said, the first one really helped you understand the characters, learn them, and a lot of like behavior that we may not have understood. This one answers literally everything. Yet again, so many beautiful quotes. This is probably going to be my favorite one in the entire series because I do enjoy Magnolia's story more than Daisy. The end though, the end of this book. There will be another book. I think there's only going to be one more Magnolia one, which I'm not ready. That was the last book that I read for my April reading wrap up. Now I just want to quickly put in my May TBR. For starters, obviously I'm going to read Daisy Haites 2 literally next. I'm excited to read this one. I've heard that this one is so much better than the first one, the first Daisy Haites. This is the fourth book in the series. I can't really say too much. I also forgot to mention that I am in the midst of filming an entire Reading Magnolia Park series. That video will come out whenever I'm done reading Daisy Haites. It's a lot of clips I'm gonna have to edit. Hopefully by next week I'll get that video out. Next, I do have Before We Were Strangers, which I'm definitely reading this month. No ifs, ands, or buts. Clearly, I love Second Chance and I love Childhood Friends to Lovers. So I think this book will do it for me. I don't know if they were childhood friends, but I know they were friends at some point and they stopped talking for like 10-15 years, something like that. I have not heard one bad thing about it. I really think I'm gonna enjoy it. I also have The Vanishing Half, which this one I got from the library. I believe this book is about two twin sisters later on in life. They both live two different lives. One kind of still lives in her same like town that she grew up in, and the other one is living like an entirely different life, but then somehow their daughters' stories end up like connecting in some sort of way. I need to get into it ASAP. Again, I got into a series, so that like completely threw this book to the side. I'm going to try and get into this one before I get into Before We Were Strangers. Those are the two books I really want to finish before getting into another series, which leads me into my next read for May. So I really want to read Once Upon a Broken Heart, and I've had this book since March. I need to read it. Like, I need to read it. I've been wanting to read it, but I have heard that Caraval is better to read first. A lot of people say you don't have to read it first. It's the same world. These characters in here show up in Once Upon a Broken Heart, and I actually like to read things in order, even if I don't have to. I usually like to. I did pick this up from the library. If I do enjoy it, I'll get the books myself. We'll see. I don't know too much on this one, to be honest with you, but it says a legendary competition, a mesmerizing romance, an unbreakable bond between two sisters. But it's a fantasy, and like I said, I haven't really been reading fantasy. Then we have Once Upon a Broken Heart. I do have the paperback, which I'm gonna get the hardcover instead because the paperback for the second book is not even out. It's just hardcover, so that book doesn't even come out till next year. Like, the paperback, like I said, is the same world as Caraval, but it's a different trilogy. I think it's a trilogy. This book is about Evangeline. She ends up learning that the love of her life is marrying someone else. So those are my May TBR books. I do have a couple other books here and some books over here as well that I do want to read. I decided these books are not going on my TBR, and the reason is I have literally two series. I have two trilogies waiting for me. If I'm going to be reading those trilogies, chances are I'm not going to get to other books, but those other books are going to stay and sit and stare at me just in case I don't end up getting into the trilogy, or maybe I end up reading more than I expected. So those are gonna stay there, but I'm not gonna commit myself to reading them. If I continue going, I'm just gonna be upset at myself if I didn't get to my books. Anyway, so that was my April reading wrap up and my May TBR. April did me well. April did me well because I ended off with 3 5-star books. I am definitely gonna be making more book videos. I love talking about books. I love filming about books. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.